Today we're going to talk about the latest with the Chris Steele drama, transfer portal stuff, including Bru McCoy, and all that's coming up after the bumper.
What do you mean you don't subscribe to my son's YouTube channel?
Mama, no!
Just snap the damn ball, RJ.
What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. Consider hitting the like and subscribe button because I upload a video every single day. It's always OU related, college football related, sports related. We have a good time today. We're going to talk a little bit more about Chris Steele. Now, why are we talking so much about Chris Steele the last few days? Well, because Chris Steele put his name into the transfer portal, and as college football has become more pass-happy and pass-centric, guys who can actually shut down wide receivers are in high demand. And Chris Steele, despite what you might think about it personally, it was a 5-star cornerback in the 2019 class. Now, catch you guys up. Chris Steele decided he wanted to go into the transfer portal after the way that the Jalen Jones situation at Florida had been handled by Dan Mullins. Now, why do you care about this? Well, you care about this because sexual assault is bad, and Chris Steele was trying to get away from a guy that was allegedly involved in some sexual misconduct. He wanted to transfer away from him as well. He wanted to transfer out of his dorm room, which sounds awkward when I say it that way. He wanted a new dorm mate, and Dan Mullins would not give him a dorm mate. He said wait till the summer, and that wasn't good enough for Chris, and it seems like it wasn't good enough for his parents either, because in this day and age, you don't really want to be associated with anybody who's been, characterized as being involved with sexual misconduct, including, incoming quarterback. So when that didn't happen, Chris Steele and probably Chris Steele's folks were like, you know what, enough of this. Get us out of here. Now, for Florida, this is a big deal because Chris Steele seemed like the kind of kid that was going to play right away. Not just because he's outstanding, but because he was their best get in the 2019 class. And at a position where you're supposed to have 8 to 9 corners on scholarship that you feel somewhat comfortable with, they got like 4. So Chris Steele was going to play and possibly he's going to start because they just didn't have anybody else. And he's really one of the best that you got. So Florida is kind of up a creek, and Dan Mullins looks real Dan Mullins again after 14K day. That aside, Chris Steele is decided, hey, I want to look around. I want to go somewhere else. Now, sources have told me Oregon, USC seem to be at the top of the list. OU's kind of reaching. Now, I think OU should be in on Chris Steele because, well, the secondary situation at Oklahoma ain't exactly spectacular. And anything you can bring in to help fill out the depth, quality depth, to get you quality reps and quality players, you should be doing. Now, one of the other aspects of this is that Chris Steele seemed to be homesick, and why wouldn't he be? He's from the Los Angeles area, and he moved across the country to Gainesville, Florida to play football. Wasn't going so hot. Plus, he had committed to USC way back in the summer, and I spoke with him about that on my podcast. You can go check that out. I might link it in the description below if I remember to do it. But he had said, look, I never thought I'd end up at USC. I thought I'd end up farther away from home because I just wanted to get away from home, which is why Florida seemed to be such a good spot for him after he reopened his recruitment after committing to USC. Get myself tied up here. So, ends up at Florida. Doesn't like Florida. Now USC and Oregon, who seem to be at the top of the list on the West Coast, have kind of emerged as places he would like to land. But there's a problem for both of those, and it ain't necessarily that they don't want him, because everybody seems to want him that he's interested in. Oregon might be up against its scholarship limit of 85 players. And if you ain't got a scholarship to give, you can't offer scholarship to a kid that's going to transfer in. It's really that simple. Now, somebody might transfer away, or, and this is a bad look, they might pull a scholarship if Chris Steele ends up saying, hey, take me, whatever you got to get me in this summer so you can get me enrolled in classes and I don't miss any school. The other place that he might want to look is USC because, well, it's right down the road. Like, he literally lives 20 minutes away. But USC got a Bru McCoy problem. Why do I characterize it as a Bru McCoy problem? Because since Bru McCoy enrolled at USC, even for a week, the scholarship counts against what they can take in their 25 accounted for the class 2019, right? So even though Bru McCoy is transferred to Texas, still counts as a guy that they took because he enrolled, which sucks, but whatever. Now, the way to get around that is possibly you could retroactively move a 2018 early enrollee into your 2017 class and make room in your 2019 class for a guy like Chris Steele, and that seems like the best way to go, and there's some other things you can do, but USC's kind of up against it as the summer term for USC starts next week. So they got to get something figured out real quick if they're going to get this kid enrolled over the summer. Now, Oklahoma does not seem to have that issue, but they got another one. I think it's USC or it's Oregon. I would bet on USC at this point in time. I think Oklahoma is a distant third, but put it this way. He had a top 5 that included Oregon, USC, Florida, and Oklahoma, and South Carolina. And I haven't heard word one about South Carolina. So whatever Will Muschamp was saying must not be what Chris Steele wants to hear. And if it stands to reason that he wants to get back closer to home because he's homesick, why would he want to move to South Carolina? I've seen stranger things happen, and they tend to happen all the time in college football. But I'm still looking at Steele, and I'm going, it's a guy that had committed to USC, reopened his recruitment, commits to Florida, goes through all that you would want to go through at Florida, spring ball, gets through it, sits through the Jalen Jones thing. It doesn't get worked out. He ends up getting through his first semester and saying, enough of this. Get me out of here. Now, for Florida, it's also going to be interesting because I think Chris Steele's enrollment is going to count against their scholarship total. So it's a lot of moving and shaking, and this is kind of an unforeseen consequence of the transfer portal. I know that there's people that are critical of the transfer portal. Most of them are coaches or work in administration because they just don't like it. I know that Lincoln Riley has made himself very clear in saying, I don't like it because, well, it's not instituting what you would think an adult needs to do when he wants to leave a job, which is give 2 weeks notice and let somebody know that this is what you're planning to do. I don't think that that's really a strong argument at all because coaches don't give 2 weeks notice. They leave. Why should a kid give you 2 weeks notice about his decision when this is a cutthroat business? Y'all are cutthroat. You want to offer a kid, but you get a better kid. That kid, you kind of sort of say, hey, start looking around because we want to take somebody to compete against you. That's cutthroat. That's not keeping your word. And that's not necessarily giving 2 weeks notice. So I mean, I guess Lincoln Riley is doing it from the coach's perspective, which I can respect and I can see. But from a player's perspective, why? I mean, if I know that I don't necessarily want to work for you anymore, I'm going to wait till I got a job, right? I mean, that seems to be the way it's working at college football. And college football is not like the real world. And that's the other point that I wanted to make about Lincoln Riley's rebuttal against the transfer portal. And as far as the transfer portal is concerned, anything that allows players to somewhat get closer to being on the equal, on a balance with power structures, when we're talking about what players and coaches can do, I'm going to be for. Because when you start paying them. When we start paying them, then we can be more critical of them. Until then, things like transfer portal need to exist, and players like Chris Steele need to be able to leverage it as best they can, even if it hurts Lincoln Riley's feelings, and I get it. It would hurt my feelings, but the business is the business. Chris Steele is a kid that's going to go somewhere, and let's say you want to make his scholarship work $50 grand. Lincoln Riley's going to make $6 million this year. I don't care that you think that he spent a lot of time getting to that position. You don't think that any 18-year-old spent a lot of time getting into a position to be recruited at the top level by Florida, Oklahoma? Show me a football player that doesn't put in a lot of work and effort to get to where he does just to be a freshman on an 85 scholarship roster. And they're going to throw up at me that Lincoln Riley paid his dues. Players play their dues. I could keep going on this, but I won't. All right, that's it from me. Doses.